Okay. One of the things we're trying to do, if you've ever attended the Career Connectors events in person, one of the things we really like to do is do networking and try and get to know each other. And it's really difficult in this environment. So we're trying to do some things a little differently. And so the chat, we're going to be using the chat much of the day today. And so if you can make sure that you're using that chat to ask questions, connect with people, maybe if you see somebody from the same industry, reach out to them. There's a drop-down menu. When you go to the chat, there's a drop-down that you can private message somebody, or you can send a message to the whole, all the attendees. Feel free to shoot a note to somebody on the chat. Maybe they're from the same city as you. Maybe they're in the same industry. And so go ahead and do that throughout the chat today, because as much as you can connect with people on and offline, that would be great. The other thing I'm going to ask for later today, so that you guys can get ready for this, is we are going to ask you to dump your LinkedIn URL into this chat. And if you can pull that up today, dump that in the chat, and then people can start connecting with each other offline after this event today. So gosh, great, good, thank you. Good morning. We have Debbie, Gail, Judith, Queen Creek. We have somebody from New York on the line this morning, Michelle from Mesa. Good morning. My name's Jessica Pierce. If I haven't met you yet, I am so thankful. We are so thankful that you guys are here today. So we are going to go ahead and get started. And I'm going to turn it over real quick to Sheila Coulomb. She is going to go over just a couple of the tech possible issues, or just some to navigate around some of the things you do. And Sonia, thank you for putting in your LinkedIn URL. So you guys can continue to do that as well. Sheila, you want to take us the next step here?
Oh, sure. Good morning. So my name is Sheila Coulomb, and I'm just trying to keep the webinar running. So everybody cross your fingers that Facebook and the internet and Zoom all cooperates and is at capacity today. If you are having any technical issues getting into the webinar, you can always call or text, better yet, our Career Connectors line at 480-442-5806. We are streaming live on Facebook, so that's always another option. We do have Q&A and chat. Jessica's already been talking about the chat. That's really probably the best way to interact while we go along. Feel free to go ahead and start conversations with each other or relative to the speaker. And I know Lisa this morning is going to be paying attention to that and having some dialogue with you as we go. So we're trying to recreate as much of our live event as we can virtually. You can control a little bit how your screen looks. If you see video of Jessica and Lisa and I right now, you can kind of control where that is on your screen and how it's displayed. There's little icons right at the top of your screen that control that, if you can see here. So those are some options for you. Enjoy.
Thank you, Sheila. All right, so this is our agenda today. We are going to hear from Lisa Barrington on preserve your well-being during chaotic times. We know that many of you may be feeling chaotic. I know even yesterday, I said to my husband, it was about 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. The day had ended, had a great day. But we were getting ready to go out and do our evening walk, and I just looked at him and I said, I'm out. I'm out tonight. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I am out. And he said, okay. And he goes, what's wrong? And I don't know. I'm just done today. I'm just done. And so we just relaxed and I did nothing the rest of the night. And so, you know, we're all feeling a little chaotic. Maybe a little uncomfortable, definitely uncomfortable if we're looking for a new job and not sure, you know, what this environment looks like. So we are so excited to have Lisa. And by the way, you guys are doing a great job in the chat. Keep it up. Just keep this going. The best you can do to connect with people in this time is really going to be helpful to you as we navigate these waters. And then today we're going to hear from Nick Velinski from TEKsystems and Patty Mazerolle from Connected Vehicle Optimization. And then the last few minutes, we will close this out and we will talk to you guys about the additional resources that are available, how you can connect with some coaches offline. We have a virtual coaching program now available and that we've launched. So lots of resources. Thank you for being here today. And I am so honored and excited to introduce you all to Lisa Barrington. She's a certified coach, workplace and engagement strategist, and speaker with over 25 years of experience. She's worked with companies of all sizes and sectors, including healthcare, higher ed, and finance. She is a behavioral scientist and has promoted learning and development in individual and group settings through one-on-one and group coaching, university instruction, program facilitation, and many conferences. She's currently completing the requirements for a PhD in organizational psychology and holds a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration and a Master of Arts in Organizational Management. She's a professional certified coach through the International Coach Federation, as well as a board certified coach. And she's also certified as a senior professional in HR through the Human Resources Certification Institute and a senior certified professional through the Society for HR, or SHRM, many of you may know. So Lisa, welcome. We are so glad to have you here today. Hold on one sec, we're gonna unmute you.
Thank you.
There we go.
Thank you for the lovely introduction. I was so good about muting and then I didn't unmute. So thank you for the lovely introduction. So just so you know, Sheila, right this moment, I'm not seeing the ability to move the slides forward. So I will, there it is. Thank you. Perfect. Wonderful. So thank you everyone for coming. We have so many wonderful things to talk about today, but we will, of course, start by talking a little bit about maybe what you're going through. So if you see a pause, it's because the slides are not always available for me, but let's talk about today's 3 topics. So first of all, we're going to be getting into what we're feeling. So Jessica just explained and shared some of what she's feeling. I'm feeling it. I'd be shocked if any of you who are attending this conference aren't feeling some of the results of the chaos. And we're going to learn more about those. We're going to label them, because by labeling them and understanding they're normal, and understanding why we're feeling them, it will help us to move forward into the next step. And the next step is really paying some attention to what we can do individually, those things that we have control over, those actions that we can take to improve our well-being. And then finally, we're gonna wrap up by thinking, okay, so we're going through all this, but we're still looking for a job. So what could we be doing? And I think one of the most important things is to ensure that you land in a company, that you land in a group, in a team, where the culture there fits your style and your values. And when I talk about culture, what I mean is, and we'll go into some greater detail, I'm talking about the way people behave and the way they treat you and the way it feels to work there. So a little bit different than what some of you might think the word culture means. So let's start by talking about what you might be feeling and where my model, which I'll show you in a few minutes, might come from. I considered a whole lot of models in trying to put together something relevant to our current situation. And there was 2 models that really surfaced as being most relevant. Neither one of them alone and neither one of them as they are make sense for what we're going through, but components of them definitely do. So the first one, many of you might have heard of it, it's the Kubler-Ross grief model. And a lot of people mistakenly think that this model is really about grieving someone's death. And actually, when Kubler-Ross designed this model, she designed it based on her research into death and dying, into people who had terminal illness and were dying, and some of the feelings they go through. And if you look at it, therefore, it's about loss. It's about finding out information that you don't expect, and then loss and the things that you might have to go through to get to the other side. But there's also another model, and it's a model about change and transition. And although it's William Bridges' model, and although it's based in human behavior, a lot of it is applied in the workplace and to the organizational structure and things you experience in looking for a job. So what I did is I took these 2 models, and I'd like to show you what I did with them. I got specific. I got very specific about what roller coaster you might all be on. Now, I'm sure many of you are looking at this and thinking, oh my goodness, this is a whole heck of a lot of words, and this is a very complicated model, but actually it's pretty straightforward. It's just you need to kind of step back, and I'll explain a little bit about it. Because really those words on the last slide represented some really big feelings that you might have. Where here I'm getting more into the nitty-gritty about some of the things that people have gone through in watching the behavior and studying the behavior of the countries who went through this first, all the way through is how it's landed, for instance, in the United States. Now, different cultures handle things differently. So you will see some of these things differently in different cultures, but in the United States, this is a lot of what I'm seeing so far. And it's a lot of what I think we're going to see at the right side. So as you look at the left side of this model, as we started maybe with concern, we heard some news, we read about something going on in another country, we read that it might or has hit the United States. We started to have concern around how this might affect us, our physical well-being, our job search. Maybe we were employed in the very beginning. And as we went down this curve here, we started to experience a lot of feelings. Now, keep in mind, you're not all going to experience all of these things, and all of these things aren't going to cover all the things you might be experiencing. And importantly, you might not experience them in this order, and more than likely, you're going to go down and up and down and up. And I'm going to explain why that's probably happening, although it's normal. There's a unique reason it's probably happening more so than normal. So as we go down the model and we hit avoidance and uncertainty, many of you have already hit the shock stage, we're starting to find ourselves going down this kind of steep curve from frustration all the way through anxiety and hopelessness. And I'm finding with all the people that I'm talking to now, a lot of people are down here. A lot of people have either had it with having to go to work if they're working outside of the house, and they've had it with the anxiety and the stress of all that. So for instance, healthcare workers and people working in the food service industry, or people who are stuck at home unemployed or stuck at home working at home, again, feeling a lot of these feelings. And here's the thing, and Jessica pointed this out, it is normal. If you're not feeling anything on this chart, I'd say you've probably been in some pretty severe isolation and not had the TV on and not checked social media at all. So it is really normal to feel these things. I had my point of overwhelmed on Monday. Oh my gosh. Amidst all the things that I'm trying to deal with, my almost brand new computer, this sound, the microphone broke. And I had heard from a couple of different groups that I was on calls with that it wasn't working. And I tried everything, and I was on hold for almost 3 hours with the help desk for the computer manufacturer because it's under warranty. Then when I finally got through, they tried 45 minutes of fixes and nothing worked. And after I hung up, I just cried. And I cried, and I cried again. I was just overwhelmed. And that is normal. And I say embrace it, and I say let it happen. And in particular, if you're not hurting someone else, because obviously the anger stage, you've got to be aware of who you're affecting, especially those of us with kids in the house. But it's okay to still feel it. It's just how we express it. So here's the thing. Yep, we're at the bottom here, many of us. Some of us might still be coming down. A few of us might be going back up the curve. But the good news is that at some point, we should all be able to climb back up this curve. And what I want to do today is talk to you about some of the actions you can take to help you start to climb that curve, even before maybe society is putting things in place that's going to allow you to. So as you exit out of the loneliness and towards ambivalence, you're going to start questioning. You're going to start questioning, well, can this work? And can I try it this way? And you're going to start to look for, solution seeking. You're going to look for those things that might help. And you're going to find ways to try to help others and be more charitable. At some point, you're going to feel some sense of relief and your energy level will go up. And you will finally start to create what's your new reality along with everyone else, because we're all going to be creating a new reality. And then hopefully we'll end up in a new status quo that frankly is, well, better than the one that we left, right? That's what the hope is. So the good news is there's things that you can do, and I want to talk to you about those next. So bear with me. Oh, by the way, that confusion is intentionally flying in there because that confusion is part of what's causing us to jump all over this map, jump all over this curve. because the information we're getting from our government, information we're getting from media, etc., it tells us one day don't wear a mask, one day wear a mask, you know, one day it's okay to take fever reducing medicine if you have COVID, the next day maybe you shouldn't. So the confusion is really adding to this zigzag, zigzag, zigzag all the way across the screen. Okay. So here's a couple, I'm going to share several ideas with you for improving your well-being. And here's an important thing. Some of these things won't make sense or work for you. And some of them you'll be like, I need to try that. So I'm going to ask you all to do one thing, and that is to commit to doing one of these things. One of these things, make a commitment. And after you listen to them or while you're listening to them, put it in the chat box, but make a commitment to one thing today that you're going to do. Before I go into these things, I did forget. Bad on me. I'd like to pause for a second. And Julia, do we have any questions in regards to this chart?
Nothing yet. I don't see anything yet, but a lot of chat is going on.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Oh, I did
No
find one. We just got one in that said, how did you just, oh, that was for us maybe. But this chart based on the science? Does it go in order? Do we jump around?
Yes. So I'm going to be really clear. This is my chart that I made based on all the reading and observation. So it's anecdotal that I've seen happen over the last 3 months in society in general. Yes, I'm definitely being informed from existing research from Kubler-Ross and from Bridges and from other change agents such as Connor and Cotter. But I got very specific with some of the words. Many of them are pulled from some of those other models, but the order and the specificity is related to what people are going through in this exact environment with the specific component of the isolation and the stay at home and the stay in place orders. So that was added. So this has not been studied. This is my proposal of what I believe a lot of people are going through. Great question. Anything
That's
else?
it. You can keep going, Lisa.
Okay, perfect. Great. Okay, so let's start with the very first set of actions for your well-being. So the first one is really about socialization, the first set of ideas that I have. So whether or not you're the type who had coffee or had drinks with friends or colleagues or people you know before all this happened, I'm asking and suggesting that you do that now. Obviously, I'm suggesting you do it virtually. But if you were the type who did it a lot, you need to continue. You need to find some creative ways to continue to do that. I know people who are having driveway parties where they all sit in their own driveways and they have their wine or their beer or their coffee or their soda and they're talking across the driveways. I know people who are doing it on video. I know people who are doing it in many different ways. So I urge you to stay safe, but to look for ways to do that. For those of you who are maybe more introverted, or didn't have a lot of these kinds of meetings before, now is the time to try to get out of your shell and try to move towards having those. So a couple of thoughts about this. One is, if you're doing it because you genuinely just want to connect and that's healthy and you need to, great. If you're doing it as a method to potentially increase your network and looking for a job, I think that's fantastic. I think it's really important though to be two-sided. And what I mean there is, don't go at this with the goal of telling as many people you're looking for a job and asking for as many people as help as possible without offering something in exchange. We all have something to offer. So just make sure that you're not just out there asking, but you're also out there offering, because it's a two-way street. And I'm sure that there's things that you can do for people while you're looking for their help. But again, try to make it as social as possible and try to enjoy the time with these folks. Another one, which I think is very interesting and a lot of fun, is these meals together. So I'm finding people who are either watching cooking shows together and trying to cook the meal afterwards or during the show, or watching cooking classes and doing it together. And in particular, they're eating together. So sometimes they're just ordering in. Sometimes they're cooking separately and just setting a time to then turn on the video and enjoy their meal together. I've seen it with people who are alone doing it. I've seen it with groups of people, with other groups, so families. In particular, it's really important if you know someone who's alone a lot to try to do that with them and give them an opportunity to join in with your family or with whoever's in your household to enjoy that meal. It's good really for both of you. Another one that I suggest is when we were back at the workplace, when we were employed or when we were working, we had these moments I call water cooler moments. And in our water cooler moments, we bumped into people, we casually interacted with people without really intent to do so. So it might have been walking to the office from our car, it might have been in the lunch or break room, it might have been on our way to a meeting or getting to a meeting early and chatting with the people around. And those moments, we probably didn't give a lot of credence to the value that those moments had. And they have a lot of value. So I'm going to suggest again that you look for opportunities to make these moments come to life for you. So here's one that some friends and I did. So a long time ago, I worked for a very large company. Well, you all know it, it's American Express. And I made a lot of friends there because I worked there for 12 years. And a couple of them live all over the world. And so recently, a couple of us been Zooming. And in our last Zoom, and I'm talking from Australia to Arizona, so bit of a wide time zone difference there. A couple of us realized it'd be really cool to bring what we call the old gang together, a whole group of us. So we decided to pick a time that was reasonable as possible for all of us. And we set the Zoom up, and next Sunday, we're all going to meet a whole big group of us from all over the world and just check in and see how we're all doing. And I know from my heart that that's really important. That means a lot, and that's going to be very helpful for me. So that's another idea that you can consider. So I'm going to pause for a second, and Julia, see if there's any comments you want to share from the chat room or any questions from anybody.
We don't really have any questions, but a lot of people are jumping in with some of their ideas for socialization, which have been great. Some virtual cooking classes, wine tasting. So people seem to really like your idea there.
Okay, great, wonderful. So let's look at a couple of other ideas that we can enjoy that can help us with our emotional well-being. This one I like, and that is a lot of people I know go for walks with other people or used to go for walks with other people. And if it's someone in your household, you're very likely not socially isolated from them, so you can still do that. But sometimes people would go for walks or other activities like that where it was partially social and partially physical, and now they can't anymore. So some people are walking 6 feet apart. But some people who are in different places are using like a FaceTime or a video app on their phone to do it. Some people are just putting their earbuds in and talking. So I'm noticing that that's really helpful for people. Now here's one that's kind of fun I like. And that is that some people are doing these watch parties. You know, we used to do watch parties. A lot of times people came over, you binged, you had these parties. But not only can you do these watch parties by doing it in your own household, but they've got this new app out, and it's not a Netflix app. It's a Google Chrome extension called Netflix Party, and I have not used it, so I can't attest to it. I've just read about it, where people can actually, someone who has Netflix can share and watch with other people, and you can talk and comment like you would if you were together in the room. You know, certainly this doesn't replace going out to the movies, but you got to be silent there. But it does replace that interaction that you have when you're in a group, say watching a big football game or watching the last episode of a show that you've been binge watching or whatever it might be. So there's different things you can look for and different solutions you can look for to really enjoy that even more. Now, here's one that I know is popular, and I'm going to recommend that people consider, is if you're the type who went to the gym or went to exercise classes before, excellent opportunity to just join any kind of a video exercise class. So it might be one that's already established and you just join. It might be that you get a group together and you do it together, or it might be where there's an established leader, an exercise, somebody who's leading classes, and you and your friends can join together. So you've got people you know. It's also important just to keep moving, and we're definitely going to talk more about the importance of moving around while you're isolated. So for this next one, yep, blank slide, very intentional. So I want you to think about something that's super important here. And it's the fact that for almost all of us, all we've seen is a constant stream of negative and fear-inducing information over the last several weeks, if not now months. And our brain is telling us, it's telling our nervous system that this is a threat. We're reading what's going on as a threat. And the challenge for us with it being a threat, that we perceive it that way, is it's turning on our sympathetic nervous system. And the problem with that is this system was designed for primal threats, such as predators and enemies. And our modern brain, well, it doesn't perceive, it actually perceives a financial threat, a job loss threat, a medical threat in the same way our ancestors perceived this predator type threat. So what's happening for us is it feels like a bear lurking in the woods. And because we're being inundated with information constantly about this, wherever device you turn on, you're seeing this, our bodies are constantly in this threat mode. Our sympathetic nervous system is constantly on. And it's staying in this on position until we believe that the threat is dissipated. Like that bear lurking in the woods, it's there and we know it, but we can't see it. So our systems are on. They are chronically on right now. And the problem is our bodies weren't designed for that. It's not designed to be on chronically. In fact, it's designed for really short bursts, giving us the opportunity to remove the threat and reset our systems. So when we don't reset, here's what happens. We damage our systems. We're accelerating our adrenal glands. Our cortisol levels are up. We're flooding our body with bad hormones. And this causes detrimental effects to our immune system. And guess what? We're wearing them down, and we need our immune systems now more than ever. It's the opposite of what we need. So normally when we turn off this sympathetic nervous system, we're turning on the parasympathetic nervous system. That's our rest and digest system. And what you can do to help yourself is to find ways to turn off the threat and to turn on the parasympathetic nervous system. And I'd like to show you how to do that. So let's look at some of those ideas. The first one, believe it or not, is so simple, and it's about breathing. So when you breathe deeply into your belly, you're turning on the parasympathetic nervous system. Now you might not realize it, but when you're reading those bad news stories on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, or turning on the news and watching this constantly, you're going to find that you're probably taking shallow breaths if you pay attention, or not taking full breaths. Practicing this deep belly breathing will activate the parasympathetic nervous system, and it takes just 2 to 3 minutes per day. In fact, you could do it in less than that. So while we're taking these deep breaths, it's ideal also to focus on other things. So turn off the devices and turn off the news and turn off the bad information and focus on something that's more positive, focus on things you can control, focus on how you imagine your future to be. Now, for those of you who are willing to try meditating or yoga or meditative stretching, there's lots of videos and apps out there to help you. And you only need to start off 1 minute at a time. Small actions will help you to regulate your emotions, which will also help to decrease the chance of depression or anxiety during this time. So I'd like to do a short practice with all of you. So bear with me. I'm going to really ask if you'd all just give this a try at home. So what I'd like you to start with, if you could, is just roll your shoulders back. Just roll them back and just let them now roll down. And push out your breath. And then take a deep breath in and hold it. And let that breath out. And take another deep breath in and hold that. In your belly, hold it in your belly. And let it out. And one more time, take another deep breath in. Hold it in your belly. And let that out. It is that simple. Doing that when you're feeling stressed or even when you notice that your breath is shallow or not deep, just doing that simple exercise less than 1 minute, at least once a day, will help to turn on your parasympathetic nervous system. So before I move into some of the other things you can do to help with that, I just want to pause because I want to make sure there might not be any questions from Julia or Jessica, Sheila, anybody? Are there any questions for me?
One, do you recommend any specific breathing apps?
So I think the Calm app is one of them, but I think that there's a paid subscription along with it. I think, to be honest, you could probably go online to YouTube And there's tons of free YouTube videos out there with people who are willing to do that are doing it for free. And there's no really wrong way to do it, so just find one you like is what I suggest. Great question.
Patty had mentioned that this is a really good tip for right before an interview.
Yes, it really is. Very good. Any kind of opportunity to fill your body with oxygen and to intentionally relax and feel as good as you can, I would agree. Especially if you're interviewing now by video and that's not something you're used to or comfortable with. So I'll just throw in the suggestion, and I'm sure others will talk about this, and that is, and already have, and that is make sure before a video interview that if you have access to the system, that you practice with somebody and you get comfortable with the technology. I think that's pretty important. So thank you for that, Patty. I appreciate it. So it's also really important in order to turn on your parasympathetic nervous system is to move around and to do that focused breathing. I suggest, and I know I have to do this, I'm in the middle of finishing a dissertation. I'm looking at 500 pages of transcripts. I could easily sit for hours at a time and get lost in it. So I have to turn an actual reminder on my phone to remind myself to get up and walk around, and to remind myself to stretch and drink water and do all these things that are so important. So definitely get up and walk around. And if you already do, or if you can, look for ways to exercise, look for ways to stretch. Stretching also helps because and especially stretching with meditative breathing can really help you with that parasympathetic nervous system and getting that turned on. So here's another thing, and I'm sure you figured I was going here with this one, and that is you have to intentionally reduce your exposure to things that are going to turn on the sympathetic nervous system. Clearly, the news, a lot of what's on social media is turning that system on, putting you in fight or flight mode, and that is not good for your system. So that the more you reduce your exposure to this, the more you can stay closer to and get into parasympathetic nervous system. Now, here's how I suggest you do it. I suggest you do a very intentional, called out limit to how much news you watch and how often. So for me, I've had to cut it back significantly. And I only allow myself either one time a day for up to 15 minutes or twice a day, 5 minutes each. So a total of 15 or 10 minutes. Because sometimes like I want to see a press conference from our governor, so I understand what I'm obligated to do, for example. So there's ways I can be very intentional about looking for that and not just be exposed by all the stuff coming in from the various news sources. So I'm going to strongly urge you to pick whether it's less frequency and longer times, or shorter times and more frequency, but as low as you can, try to get it down to once a day if you can. You'll get what you need once a day. And if you're the type that also likes to go on social media for other reasons, then you're going to have to figure out how to skip over those other pieces of news. So for instance, I'm on LinkedIn a lot for my business. So I have to figure out how to make sure I read what's relevant for me and skip over a lot of the negative news that won't be helpful for me. Now here's something that's really important, folks. And I know a lot of you are guilty of this, and that is those devices at bedtime. It's super important at bedtime that they're off. Now, some of you are saying, I can't turn it off. I have an elderly parent who's alone, or I have a child who lives across the country, an adult child. I need to know if, okay, that's fine. So my suggestion is put it on silent. We all have that kind of do not disturb function where certain calls can come through, and put your phone across the room. Mine's off at bedtime. I still have a landline. I'm a dinosaur, so I can do that. I have it for my business. But in all honesty, if you can turn it off, get it off, and if not, upside down and across the room from you. Really important. And make sure your devices are off 30 minutes before bedtime so you don't have the screen time and you don't have the stress of accidentally reading something that might cause stress for you. So I'm going to move a little more quickly because I'm looking at the time and we still have so much to talk about. So as you can imagine, eating healthy will boost your immunity system, your immune system, absolutely. There's also something else though about eating, and that is we oftentimes have a particular food that brings us joy or is attached to a memory, and that's okay. If there's something like that, find that too, enjoy that too. Or something that you and your partner like to order in or cook together that will bring joy, go ahead and do that too. So think about that. One of the most important things I'm going to suggest and I'm going to emphasize is sleep. You have got to get enough sleep during all this. And I know for some of you who have kids at home and are trying to look for a job, sleep is the last thing on your mind. But look for every opportunity you can to get as much sleep as you can. Let your body tell you when you need to wake up. Go to sleep earlier and earlier, and get your kids to sleep early and earlier if you have them, or your partner earlier and earlier, so you can get that much more sleep. And you want that sleep to be restful, so make sure that those devices are turned off. A few final things I want to talk about. I cannot overstate the value of gratitude. Think about what you're grateful for and write it down. Ideally, do it every day, and ideally try to find 3 things, different things each day. Because practicing gratitude actually changes the neural structure of your brain. It creates pathways that create this positive thinking, as well as releasing neurotransmitters such as dopamine and serotonin. It enhances your happiness levels. There's a lot of studies that actually show you having gratitude for other people or other things, or things you have, increases your well-being. It's also shown to increase your quality of sleep and boost your immune system, which we all need right now. So look for the positive. There's a couple of things out there. You can look for hashtag COVID kindness, hashtag look for the helpers, but there's a lot of positive, great news out there. One of my favorites is Some Good News videos from John Krasinski. Those are fun and funny, and they're focused on the good news. So definitely do that. And finally, think about how you can help others, because acts of kindness, that pro-social behavior, once again, it helps you too. So it not only helps the person you're doing something for, but it raises your own positive hormones in your body, releasing what you need to increase your well-being. So send someone a note. Order them a meal. I ordered an elderly relative who lives in another state. I ordered her a bunch of meals from a meal service because it's harder for her to get out, and there's no food delivery where she is. It's a little bit more of a suburban area, and just the reaction was worth any effort I made to make that happen for her. She actually was crying. She said that it took her an hour to call me to thank me because she was crying because someone thought of her. And it was a very simple act. So any act, write somebody a handwritten note, send them a text, call them, do whatever you need, but to show an act of kindness is something that will be both beneficial to you and beneficial to them. And keep in mind, the positive is coming. The good stuff is on its way. We don't know when, but it will eventually come, whether it looks like a new job, whether it looks like increased hours for those of you who have reduced hours, whether it looks for your financial situation to get better, or for us to all be able to get to some new sense of normalcy. It's coming. So I say stay positive and look toward the future. I know for me, that's been very helpful. I'll wrap this section up with just a few comments about joy. It's really important during this time to identify things that bring joy to you in your life. So for me, I was so busy with so many things before this happened. I didn't have time to do one of the things that's joyful, which is cooking. I love to cook. And now, after cooking so much in the last few months, it started to feel kind of like drudgery. So I brought my speakers in my kitchen, and I'm blasting lots of very uplifting music while I'm cooking. So I'm doing 2 things that I really enjoy. So it might be music, it might be cooking, it might be a special conversation with a good friend. It's just setting that aside of time, going outside, breathing in the fresh air and the pollen. If you're allergic, maybe inside. An evening stroll with a partner. Maybe it's doing that craft or project you just have not had time to do for so long. So here's the thing. I know the job search is important, and it actually should be your full-time job. There's no doubt. But you're going to be much better in the interview if you've been taking time during that time search to do self-care, to take care of yourself, to do things that bring joy in your life. Because it's going to show if you're all about stress, but it's also going to show if you're balanced. So before I move on, I'm going to pause and see if there's questions about this section, because we're going to wrap up by talking about how to find a culture in an organization that's a good fit for you.
I don't see any questions. There's a lot of comments around what brings people joy and what they're grateful for. And so that's great to see.
Lisa, we did have one. Someone asked about recommendations to improve relationships in quarantine, because we're all living in tight spaces and adjusting boundaries.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. Certainly, I've had to do it myself. In my case, I have a very unique situation, and we had to go through several iterations of adjusting boundaries because I have asthma, so I'm high risk, and I'm almost 60. I'm gonna just put it out there. So I'm high risk, and and my husband. So my business, I was always able to transfer it to a work at home because almost everything I do, I could work out of my home if I wanted to. I do have an office, and I did go out to all my clients before, but I could transition my business, and I did it very, very, very quickly. In fact, I transitioned the last part of my data collection for my dissertation to online in the beginning of all this because I worked in healthcare for so long. I saw what was coming in some ways. My husband, on the other hand, is a mechanic for the airlines, so he still goes to work, and he goes to the airport, and he goes inside planes. So here I am, high risk, and he's around lots and lots of germs. So you can imagine there was a whole lot of negotiating going on between us about how are we going to manage through this. And we went through at least 5 iterations. So the first iteration was I begged him to stay home for a couple of weeks back in, I'd say, mid-March, to see if anything happened that would allow him then to stay home, if there would be forced to stay at home, hoping that would happen for me, and it didn't. So then we had to go through this negotiation. Okay, if he went back to work, he took 2 weeks vacation. Then what do we do next? And then at first it was too much because then we couldn't see each other at all. So we've had to go through several iterations of renegotiating our boundaries, renegotiating our relationship, renegotiating how we are physical and emotional and communicative with each other. It has not been easy. We're still here together and we haven't killed each other. In fact, in many ways, it's just brought out a lot of co-compassion between the two of us, which in the beginning didn't feel that way. It felt like we were trying to find our own space. And then we got to the point where we found a space together and trying to help each other get through this, recognizing each other's challenges. So I say it's about sitting down and acting as if the old boundaries don't exist. It's like zero-based budgeting. Start from ground zero and start with all new boundaries, because that's kind of what we had to do, and then try them out and then keep, I think what worked best for us is we adjusted as we went based on what worked and what didn't work for us. I don't know if that helped. If there's any other questions.
The comments, they loved it.
Okay, all righty. So let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about that job search and the culture fit, because I think that's going to be really important as we're out there looking. So company culture includes a whole lot of things, and we are talking about company culture, not social culture. So it includes things like the environment, both physical and behavioral. It includes things like the company's mission and their vision and their values and their goals and their ethics. It includes the expectations they have. It includes the way that they treat people internally, and it includes the way they treat people externally. So let's just start briefly with the vision and mission. You can go to a company's website and you can see quickly what their focus is by reading about their vision and mission. First of all, is it hard to find? If it's hard to find, that's not good. You should be able to find it pretty easily. It should be pretty prevalent. And is it focused on productivity and finances? Or is it focused on people and customers and the community and society? Right there, you're going to have a good sense of what kind of company that is and what's important to them. Another thing to focus on is the values and the ethics. So when you look at the values of a company, what do they put as their primary, what do they list as their primary values, and what actions do they take that support what they're saying? Are they walking the talk? Here's an example. So for many, many years, this organization called the Business Roundtable, which is made up of leading CEOs around the world, had an agreement that stated that the primary purpose of organizations is to make money. Last, I think it's September now, pretty sure it's August or September of last year, a couple hundred of those people on the roundtable signed a new pact. And that one said, okay, we get it. It's equally important how we treat our employees, how we treat our customers, how we treat our suppliers, how we treat the community that we work in and the society at large, in addition to our shareholders and the investors and our financial situation. Some organizations got pretty smart about that and started actually living their new value. Some aren't there yet. Look for it. Look for what they're doing. You'll also notice in January, February, many companies started to take seriously sustainability. There's a reason behind that is too long for this conference, but it comes back to an investment firm basically putting them on notice. So the bottom line is, if these are important things to you, then look for them, and look for them in a variety of ways. You can find them through online searches, you can find them information on their website, you can find them through news articles. So look for their values and ethics and find out what works for you and what you need. So also, when we're looking at leadership, we're looking at their behaviors, we're looking at their expectations that they have of people, and we're looking at the way they communicate. So look at, from an outsider looking in, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the insider view, look at that from their perspective. I want to give you a couple of thoughts while we're on this point about how you can get some of this information. So certainly you can go to Google, you can do searches, you could look for some legitimate information around companies. So not only their own website, but that's of course going to be their perspective, but you can look for journal articles from publications that you respect. Be careful, because there's a lot of stuff on the internet that's not necessarily of great value. So make sure it's a legitimate source. But you can go to sites like Glassdoor and get a sense of organizations, what people think about them. You can go to the best places to work lists and get a sense. The news and Google, of course, and the company website, also LinkedIn. So you can look for people who are first or second connections, or even third connections. See if somebody who has worked or does work at a company has some insight that they're willing to share with you about, for instance, management style and communication. A company's rituals, which frankly, it's harder to see when you can't get physically inside the company, or on a Zoom call is harder to see. But if it gets to a point where things are lifted and you can do an in-person interview, look for their rituals. Look how people dress. Ask and look around about how people are communicating, how they're physically seated at work, and are workspaces small or large, or are people talking freely, or is it dead silent? These are some of the things that you can pay attention to. Whoops, sorry. There we go. Practices, policies, and procedures. Again, these are harder to get from the outside looking in. You can do some search on the internet. You can find some stuff, especially with large public companies. That stuff gets published all over the place. But you can ask people. You can get into LinkedIn and find out. And find out if the kind of policies and practices they have are supportive of employees or restrictive. And is that going to be a good match for you? Finally, the last thing I suggest that you look at is, how do the employees of that organization behave? And what are the belief systems of that organization's employees? And does that align with your personal culture, your personal style, and your personal values? So lots of information there. I'd be more than glad to take any questions, answer any questions. So Julia, if there's any questions, and I'm also going to start now to monitor the chat too. So.
There's just a lot of discussion about the importance of culture, finding the right culture, connecting. So a lot of great discussion. We did have one specific about how do you find out the true culture when you're interviewing and everybody's putting on a good face, but I think you did a great job of explaining.
I do have a question I like to ask, or I suggest people ask, and that is, a lot of people say, well, what's the culture like here? When they turn it around and say, do you have any questions for us? And I say, can you give me an example? And I'm going to ask for 2 examples, one of each. Can you give me an example of where the culture that's spoken about at your organization really shined? So what you say really showed up. And can you give me an example of what you say your company's all about didn't show up very well? Because it's the reverse behavioral question, but it's asking of the interviewer. And usually people will tell you the truth, and you can get a sense of what happens. It's not the whole picture, obviously. The best thing to do is to find somebody who works at that company and ask them.
One of the questions that just popped up, and this is a great question, do you have any examples of maybe a company or two that have great cultures, and how you know they have a great culture?
So one company, and a lot of you probably haven't heard of them because I don't think they have a presence in Phoenix, is Barry Waymiller. It's led by a gentleman named Bob Chapman. I urge every single one of you, if you have a chance, get on YouTube, get online, and look up Bob Chapman, who is the primary shareholder and the president, CEO of Barry Waymiller. Barry Waymiller is spelled W-E-H-M-I-L-L-E-R. Bob Chapman is the perfect example, absolute perfect example of how a leader should run a company. He actually says they are not in business to make money. They're in business to take care of employees, and they use products and profits in order to make people have better lives. That's the kind of company you want to work for.
Yeah, that's great. And you know, a couple of the comments here on the chat are around, you know, one person's great culture fit isn't going to be another person's great culture fit.
I think that's very true. So I've had a couple of companies I've worked for where I, to this day, would go back in a second if I were looking for work. Their culture was amazing. And yet I know people who work for those same companies who weren't happy there. So you have to figure out what's important to you. And that's why I suggested some of those things, is look at what's important to you, figure out what your value system is, and what you want, what kind of culture, what kind of workplace, what kind of environment is going to work for you. Now, I don't want to forget, and I'll answer any other questions too. At the bottom of these slides, and I believe the slides are going to be made available to everyone, and I believe Sheila put this link in the slides. I created early on, back in early March, a list of lots and lots of resources for all of you that are free on my website in regards to COVID. So it's everything from work at home, if you are working at home, but you can apply much of that to the job search at home, to things for your kids to do, to things to help with you with your well-being. So feel free to go to my site and take advantage of any of those free resources. What other questions do we have?
Just
we did have,
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Okay, we did have one, and they did say, they're asking what beliefs specifically should we be looking for?
Yes, great question. So sometimes employees believe that in a very hierarchical system, and they believe that what the boss says goes, and this is what we do, or they believe in a very tight structure. So everything is done a certain way and only that way. And that's just much more of a stricter, tighter culture. Some cultures are, and it's more often at startups or smaller organizations, although you can find it at other organizations that are oftentimes not as likely to be regulated, where the culture is very loose and people can be very creative, and there's that opportunity for people to step up and step in and make suggestions. So, for example, Barry Waymiller is one of those cultures where they look for everybody. Everybody counts, and everybody has an opportunity to share their opinion. And it's equally important if you are working on the line on one of their machines, all the way through the CEO of the company. So you have to decide, because some people are not comfortable in those free-for-all kind of cultures. And then there's stuff in between, and then some people are not comfortable in those really tight, restrictive cultures. So you have to look for the behavior and ask questions about that. Great questions.
I think that's it. Just a lot of discussion around questions to ask the employer. So yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you.
And did you have anything else, or is that how you'd like to end today? And people can reach out to you with your email address that's listed there, and then the website below.
Sure. If somebody has a question, feel free to drop me a note. And I just wish you all the very best in your job search. And thank you for attending.
Thank you, Lisa. We really appreciate you being here today. It's so good to take a step back and realize that, one, we're not alone. We are all feeling, we're all somewhere on the cycle of that feeling. And it was interesting for me to realize, okay, yes, I might be in one feeling, feeling in one of those today, but maybe later today I feel totally different. And so thank you for that, walking us through that, and then touching on culture fit for employers. So thank you for being here. We really appreciate your time.
Certainly.
Okay, now we're going to transition over to our couple hiring companies we have. And first we're going to start with Nick Velinski, and he is the director. He currently serves as the Direct Placement Service Manager and Veteran Lead for the West region for TEKsystems. And prior to that, he served in the United States Air Force as an Information Security Analyst with the National Security Agency. And after the service, he completed his bachelor's degree from Indiana, which he also served as the president of the Student Veterans Association. And then in 2019, he was elected the chairman of the Pre-9/11 Military Family Relief Fund and inducted into the 2019 Arizona Industry Fellowship Program. Now, with TEKsystems, he partners with companies in the Phoenix market focused on workforce development and technology delivery, services, and in training. And in addition, he focuses on inclusion and diversity as well as community relations representative for programs like the Pat Tillman Foundation, Arizona Corporate Council on Veterans Careers, City of Phoenix Workforce Development Board, and TEKlytics here in Arizona for TEKsystems. And Nick is just a great guy, and we're so thankful to have you here, Nick. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Jessica. And Lisa, I was writing down notes on my end on your presentation. I feel like I'm in the questioning stage of that bell curve that you mentioned. A lot of questions being asked out there and making sure we're getting the right information to make certain decisions as best as possible, even for myself, our company, and the community. So I appreciate that information, very helpful. Things I wrote down too as well. But glad to be here, to be a helping hand to Career Connectors and Jessica and everyone that's here today. Just a little bit about our company for those that you may not know who TEKsystems is. We support a little over 125 different companies just here in the Valley alone, but 6,000 throughout the country, and a lot of different skill sets related to technology, risk and compliance, healthcare. And currently right now, we still have a little over 400, 500 employees any given Sunday right now. As in this market, we didn't really see a drop in our employment across the board. It's actually pretty staggering, given the diverse economic build we have here in this market. So for you out there job searching, we are very diverse in this market. We're not staggering any particular vertical, and we don't have all eggs in one basket for any particular company here. So as far as kind of rebounding into maybe a next opportunity or new one, there's a lot of hope out there for us to get back on our feet as soon as possible. And to go into a little bit of detail what that looks like for those in kind of that questionnaire, what's next for me, here's a few targeted type roles that we focus in on, but not limited to. And these are the type of roles that are actually open right now that we can start having conversations either this afternoon, as soon as possible. I'll have my contact information to get you plugged in with our team with availability as soon as next week if possible. And as far as other roles that you may be targeting not on this list, that is okay. This conversation is more about introducing you and building you a team that could help you find your next job. A lot of it's in the homework phase of who's hiring, who can help, who can do an introduction. And the more you build out a team helping you with that, makes it for a better experience for you. And with that as well, want to make sure I kind of highlight, even kind of discuss a little bit, even with what Lisa mentioned. There's a lot of different areas you start tackling your job search in these particular settings. It's not going to be the exact same as maybe before. And the number one thing that at least I see in the job market right now is making sure you understand the big picture, what your timetables look like, where you're at, rather than just looking for the next job with, I just need something as soon as possible. Obviously, that is the reality of it, but there's a bigger picture too to reassess where you want to take your career just as much as the next job. And understanding and building these relationships now, even if you found yourself in a job, building relationships, helping others find a new job within your company as a referral, just making a friendly introduction through LinkedIn. Now is the time more than ever just to be asking, how are people feeling, even if they have a job, and not necessarily even asking, what do you have available? Because right now we do have more people looking for jobs than those that are available right now in this moment. That's soon to change. Soon to change with, I even have a call tomorrow with the Secretary of Labor of the country to discuss kind of some rollouts that we're going to have in the state right now and how to get people back to work as soon as possible. Because the more information we have that are going to be either based on policy, regulations, or guidelines will help companies make more decisions, which help partner with us, with the companies that we are supporting with their hiring needs. And then with that being said too, perfection is progress worth enemy. I'm a big advocate of that. It doesn't have to be the perfect role, the perfect setting. A lot of times it's one step closer to the next role that you're looking for. And a lot of that time is, looking into the right companies that has certain core values and purpose that you're looking for and share, that take care of their employees, that don't panic when the first storm comes in, and really just understanding what's their priority, taking care of their people, their customers, the community. Do those all intertwine? And is that important to you? And with that too, as being said, I could always ask for questions and have a little bit more of a dialogue in this particular setting, but I'm just here to help. I may not have the right job for you next, but at the very least, I could probably point you in the right direction or make an introduction for someone that can really help and build that team around you in your job search and kind of have a strategy that goes along with the roles that you're targeting. I'm here to help by all costs and get you plugged in as soon as possible, as certain companies are doing some furloughs. Some are even doing pay cuts, 10, 20, 30%. We're hearing it across the board. But here in this market, it's a lot different than others. Just give you a few examples. Even like markets like Dallas, where they're heavy built on the airline industry, or Orlando and the hospitality. Those markets are hurting a little bit more than others. Here, you should have a little more hope, a little more willingness, but it takes a partnership in your job search. And it can't just be a one-way street of here's what we have, which one do you want to kind of pick from in the bunch. It is a collaboration and strategy with it. And a lot of it also goes with timing. And a lot of our recruiters right now in this market are having conversations right now. So when that green light does even go a little bit more live with the hiring, a little more faster and expedited, you're ready and the target's there. So you do get that phone call about the role that just went go live that has a start date in 2 weeks. And it's having these conversations sooner than later. And that's what I'm here for. And our team is ready to connect with you, go over that, update a strategy, even help you with your resume if needed, and start making some introductions as soon as possible. And to kind of wrap that up, very simple next steps. An email if it makes it easy, with a resume. Doesn't have to necessarily be updated. We can work on that later. Don't spend too much time, making a perfect resume. We could work with that. And just we set up a time we can start talking and get you plugged in. But if there's any particular questions on the chat box, happy to answer them right now, or at the very least, connect with you as soon as possible and start helping you out.
Thank you, Nick. And I just love everything that you do in our community. Did you run the virtual Pat run this weekend?
I did. I felt at first I was alone, but I did it at Apache Trailhead. And I ended up seeing people running, which made me feel better because I thought I was alone. But when you start seeing a lot of people in that same situation as you start to have more hope, and then you don't feel alone as much as you thought you did. Because in one way, we are in this together, but we can be alone in it very easily too if we're not making introductions, we're not connecting with people, and we're just, the last thing you'd want to do is completely isolate yourself from the community, even though we have some guidelines and some good habits we want to maintain right now and be a good citizen to our community and look out for those around us. It doesn't have to be locked in a chair in your house either. There's ways to get out there and to see the pictures and everyone engaged in the community of the Pats run and still make the effort to participate no matter where they were at was at least inspiring for me. Our company did the best they can to make awareness around the country, and it was unique just to see people and families just getting out there and just having a little dose of normalcy in a way through the Pat Tillman Foundation.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you again for being here. We dropped your email in the chat as well. If you, when we move over to Patty, if you want to jump over to the chat, there was kind of a specific question for you, so you can answer that through the chat. But again, thanks for being here. We're so glad to have you today.
Will do. Thank you.
You are welcome. We're going to move over to Patty. Patty Mazerolle is the HR leader at Connected Vehicle Optimization, or CVO, and has been with the company for about 2 years. Patty's worked for both small employers and larger ones, to include GE and ADP. She has over 20 years of HR experience, and she's very passionate about finding the right person for the right position who is focused on the right things. Also, Patty is involved with creating onboarding plans to ensure new hires are set up for success from day one. Patty, thank you for being here and engaging in our chat. Welcome.
Hey everyone. Jessica, I have to say this is so much fun. I had no idea what to expect. This is my first virtual job fair, and really didn't know what to expect, but this is an amazing group. I cannot keep up with the amount of chats and the LinkedIn connections that I've already received. So this group is highly engaged. I'm having a little trouble keeping up with all your comments and great advice to one another. This is so amazing. Without sounding really corny, Lisa had asked early on in the presentation about what you're looking for. And I have to say, this truly has been such a fun, engaging experience. I was welcomed by the opportunity presented itself again, but really just humble and thankful that I'm able to connect with all of you today. And as Nick mentioned, I think the networking is so critical. Even if there is not a position available today that I talk about, just the connections. We all know a lot of people, and it can be as simple as forwarding resumes and chatting with folks, and you'd be surprised how it can take off from there. So again, just thank you for letting me participate today. I did close down my chat because I just get so wrapped up in that. So I'll rely on Jessica and others to shout out if there's a question that they want me to address. But I first want to talk a little bit about connected vehicle optimization. We have been in business for over 20 years. We're a very stable company, and it's been a very interesting situation that we're in. We support the smart technology transportation sector. And fortunately, we have not been impacted with the recent economic downturn. And so again, you think about the things you're thankful for, and that truly is something that I lose sight of every day. I'm very, very thankful. I work for the company I work for. And so CVO is a very stable company. And the slide that you have in front of you, it illustrates a little background about our company. We became a standalone company back in June of 2018. And we used to be under the umbrella of these really large employers, Xerox, ACS, Lockheed Martin. And so when we divested from Conduent in June of 2018, for the first time, we really got to establish our own core values and our mission and our vision. And so you have this feel of a startup company, but yet we have so many great people and processes and technology in place that we really had the benefit of both worlds. So it truly has been an interesting ride. I've been with the company for about 2 years, so I've been able to see the divestiture from Conduent all the way through working with the CEO and President Skip Kinford and the senior leadership team on mission and vision and core values, which I'll touch on a little later, because there was just a ton of conversation around culture.
Patty, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Your voice is going in and out, and so we're only catching catching about 75% of what you're saying. So I don't know if you have a separate Wi-Fi connection you can connect to, or direct connect, because we think it's on your side.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So go ahead, but I just want you to know we're having a little bit of problems, so you might have to kind of speed up a little bit and at least talk about your job so we can catch that part.
Okay, let me get to that job screen. And I moved my laptop a little closer. I don't know if that was it.
We can hear you right now.
Okay, maybe that was it. But let me just get to that, and I can always go back. Okay, so this is clearly why, I think most people are on the call today, is to learn about the different positions that we have available at CVO. And we have several positions. I want to say about 20. Most fall in the IT sector. And I have listed on the left-hand side the different positions that we have available from our IT department. But we also have a few other positions available in our call center. We have a corporate accounting manager. I was chatting with somebody online about that position as well. So I encourage you go out to Connected Vehicle Optimization's web, or the LinkedIn site actually. And I'm directing you to the LinkedIn site for a few reasons. One, we set up Easy Apply for all of you, where it literally takes 2 minutes to apply for one of our open positions. You upload your resume, you're going to answer a couple questions, I think there's 2, and the whole process will take you just a few minutes. So please go out to our employer site on LinkedIn. All of the positions are listed. We do have some, for example, I think it's the QA position in IT where we have more than one position available. So please check out our LinkedIn site. And you can also send me your resumes at careers@cvo.com. I know there was somebody who was interested in an HR position, and I don't have anything in HR right now, but I know a lot of people. I've been in HR for over 20 years, and I can certainly help you with some networking. I can review your resume, give you some advice if that's what you're looking for. So I'm happy to help in any way. Jessica, I'm going to do a sound check. Is this better?
Hey, we're hearing you. Yeah. So you have about 2 more minutes if you want to touch on the culture or the company at all.
Yeah. Oh, that one's super fast. Okay. So I do want to talk about culture because there was amazing discussion about how important it is for the culture. And when you're interviewing, feel free to ask the person you're interviewing with to give you some examples of their culture. What types of initiatives do they have in place? One person asked, and I thought this was a great suggestion, what is the company doing today to support the employees during COVID-19? And just to give you a real quick example, there's been many, many initiatives that CVO has put in place specifically to address how do we engage our work at home employees now? We all used to be in the office together. So what are we doing differently today than maybe what we were doing just 60 days ago? So you can get to use some specific examples of what they're doing in terms of initiatives. That will give you some flavor in terms of how engaged their workforce is, how maybe the CEO supports the culture, some really important things. So don't be afraid to ask for specific examples. Just remember, you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. And I hate interviewing. Think of it more as a cup of coffee with a friend, if you will.
Great. Thank you so much, Patty. You were starting to break up again, so I don't mean to cut you short, but it's just difficult to hear you. So the last thing Patty mentioned was, it's our job to interview the company essentially during those interviews. And so make that a conversation and be asking really good questions. So thank you again, Patty, for being here. You have some great jobs available, and we dropped that link right in the chat. All right.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome. All right, we are going to close out now. Hang with us for a few more minutes because I want to show you some coaching programs that we have available for you guys. We are also going to try something new with our evaluations today. So Sheila Kulam will be dropping in some polls for you. And you can just, if you can just answer quickly, it'll pop up on your screen and you can just answer. It's an evaluation. So this first one, this webinar registration was easy. We are playing with different things, trying to understand how registration, what's the best way to register. There's been some issues with Eventbrite, getting the Zoom out. And so we're trying to figure all that out. So you can answer that one. And then once that one ends, we will pop up a new one. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for answering those questions. We really appreciate it. Okay, so Sheila, if you want to move forward for me, or I got it. Okay, so now if you aren't familiar with the program that we have, the Connectors Academy, I'd like to take any online certifications, online trainings. We have some of it grant funded, especially in the IT space. And then we are going to be launching a couple other free programs around digital media and some stuff on Zoom as people are trying to learn Zoom. And so those will be with that training, and in partnership with Bright College is who we are working with on that. Then we have corporate partners that make this program happen. And here are many of our partners today, and many of them are hiring. And so, if they're the ones that make these webinars continue to happen and continue to happen, the events happen in person around the Valley. Now, during the chat today, we had some really good conversations about hiring companies. We have a partnership with Best Companies, and a month ago, when this pandemic really started to hit our Phoenix area, we pulled together and went out and found out verified companies that were hiring. So over 200 companies are listed on this website, bestcompaniesaz.com/resources. So you can go to that website, look at the verified companies that are hiring, and there's thousands of positions out there now. So even though we are in the midst of a recession or starting a recession, there are companies in Phoenix. Okay, so let me talk about some resources we have for you guys. If you have never taken the DISC assessment, we encourage you to take that. There is no cost at all to take the DISC assessment. It's through a partnership with Top Talent Consulting. And also, we will be doing an event app. So to hear Lisa's information or to hear about Patty and Nick, not only will we post the full webinar so it's accessible to you online, we will have a written recap of that as well. Also, typically at our events, we take professional photos. And if you got one before, they're posted to SmugMug photography site, so you can go out there and get them. And that, again, as soon as we are able to host an event. You guys are doing great on answering the evaluations, so keep that going. Thank you so much. Now, on social media, we are really trying to engage with people as much as we can. So we have all of the social media platforms. We are posting regularly and engaging in conversation on those. So check those out and engage with us in that platform. This will also go out via our social media. Okay, so here we go, careerconnectors.org/coaching. It's also under our resources section of our website, the job seeker tab, and then resources. If you want some one-on-one coaching, we have the best coaches. We are incredibly blessed to have the best coaches offering up their time to do resume review, to give you LinkedIn guidance. These are in short sessions, 10 to 15 minutes. But if you need some career coaching, maybe some mock interviewing, maybe some engagement on Zoom before you go into an interview, we also have someone who can talk finance coaching. What are some things you can think about right now? These are all available. You just go to that website, that URL, and fill out a short form, send it over to us, and then one of our awesome program coordinators, her name is Beth, she will connect you with a coach and get that scheduled. So we have tried to turn our in-person events into virtual events, and we always have an hour at the end of our in-person events to have you get some coaching. And so we've turned that into a virtual program. Okay, so here is our upcoming schedule. You guys, next week, April 29th, is one of my all-time faves. We have not had him here for years because he moved to Utah about, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago. And I call him my brother from another mother. I adore Justin. He knows the job market. He knows job search. So he's going to talk, get the job with skills you learned in kindergarten. And right now we have TEKsystems hiring companies. And you're in for a treat on May 6th with Networking from Home with Dave Sherman. So again, how can you continue to network and keep connected to people? And we have National Bank of Arizona and Cenlar as our hiring companies that day. And then following up on with that 13th is Carrie Pfeffer, Genuine Connections in the Virtual World. Right now we have CVS as one of our hiring companies. And so you can register any of our events. They're posted out there through May at our event schedule website. All right. Let's see. All right, so we are trying to not only engage in these webinars with you, but we are trying to do 2 additional programs. So on our website, this is just a screenshot of our website. You can find 3 things, well, 4 things actually. You can sign up for our e-updates, which are every Monday morning, we send out an email that has, here's the event coming up, register, and we always provide some additional tips in that as well. So you can, if you did not register through Eventbrite for this event today, maybe you're watching us on Facebook Live, and we don't have your email, just go register or on our subscribe on our website, and then you will start to get those emails. Then we have the webinars. You can see the CC webinars box is right there. We're going to post this webinar right there if you want to rewatch any of it. And then every day, Monday through Friday, I'm doing a 3 to 5 minute e-update, a career chat, something about that's going on in our community right now. So we've been doing a lot on unemployment because there's a ton of questions around unemployment. So we're posting those videos right on that site. You can also find them on all of our social media. And then we're also doing a little bit longer, 10, 15, 20 minutes community updates. So we did one with DES. The one that's showing right here was with one of the DES directors talking about how to get through unemployment, who qualifies. That's a really, really great tool for any of you that have not listened to that yet. We just did one yesterday with Goodwill of Central and Northern Arizona because they opened up some of their career centers, opened them back up. You can go there, utilize a computer if you need to, have questions about unemployment, you can go there. They have job search available, but they also have virtual services as well. We are doing with, I did an interview with Chris Camacho, GPEC, and Mark Stewart, he's the council member for Chandler, just talking about our environment right now. So those are great ways to continue to keep connected with us as well. And we're trying to get as much content out that's applicable to each of you. Now, you guys, we could not do this program without the amazing volunteers that serve. So we're not able to see each other and give each other hugs and things, but there's so much behind the scenes right now. For example, Michelle is doing our event recap, which will be posted in the next couple of days. Julia is the one that you hear piping in, asking questions. She has been such a rock for us in helping with the Zoom and all the engagement. We work with the Resume Writers Council of Arizona. These are professional resume writers. They know what's working, what gets you through applicant tracking systems. These wonderful men and women are doing the resume reviews that we're connecting you with. They're volunteering their time. So again, fill out that form if you want someone to look at your resume. It's not just a random person. These are actual professionals that know what they're doing. And then we have many, many, many virtual coaches that are volunteering their time to support you in any way they can. So we're incredibly thankful for them. So I just wanted to, just one last thought is, you know, you guys, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. You are not alone. We are happy to be able to be with you. Remember, if you saw somebody in the chat you wanted to connect with, please do that. Do not do this alone. Let people support you. And just so you all know, we will continue to do these every single week while we're in this environment. A program may look a little different when we come out of it, but I can't imagine we would end our virtual events because we have been getting a lot of great feedback that's able to support people that can't come to our regular events, in-person events. But know that our whole team is praying for you, and we are that you do land into the career of your dreams. Have a wonderful day, you guys.